Erev Tov, everyone. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora. This is the Maimon Beit Knesset, therefore it must be the in-depth story Torah study with Rabbi A. And tonight we have the other Rabbi A with us, and we'll bring him in a minute. Thank you all for being here. We have Donald in the room so far. So we know we're good. Donald is here. We don't have to go looking for him because anytime he's late, we get concerned. Okay, so others to be coming as we normally do. As you know, we are studying the Sefer Shemot. The last time we were together, we started on Parsha Tetzaveh, and we are on, this would be Exodus chapter 28 and beginning at verse 15. So, with all that said, there's Marshall. I knew he would be here. Okay, and with that said, let's bring in Rabbi Anshel. And you are on now, sir.
Good evening, everybody. It's my first time here, so I'm going to listen tonight.
Okay, so we have Red Sampson in the room. Good to see you. Glad you're here. Okay, so as you know, we're doing this is an in-depth Torah study, and we've been doing this, I think, a little over 2 years now, and we are on Parsha Tetzaveh. So that should tell you how much detail we're actually going into. We're using Rashi's commentary to do that, and the additional commentaries. So let's go ahead and get started. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
And we are off and running. Verse 15. You shall make a choshen of judgment, the work of an artist, like the work of the ephod. Shall you make it of gold, turquoise wool, and purple wool, and scarlet wool, and twisted linen shall you make it. Rashi goes on to say that the choshen of judgment, it is called this because it atones for miscarriages of justice. Alternatively, it is called a mishpat because it substantiates its statement and its promise made through the Urim and Vetumim come true. In Old French, I am not even going to try that. I've massacred Old French enough in my lifetime, so I'm going to skip that, Rashi being an old Frenchman. So for the term mishpat has three meanings. A, the word of the claims of the litigants. Then, and the verdict. And the execution of the punishment, be it a punishment of death or a punishment of lashes or a punishment of payment of money. This example of the word is used in the sense of substantiation of words, as it is explained, as it explains the substantive, substantiates its words. Okay. A little odd way they got a phrase there, but sometimes Old French does not translate to English that well. Rashi goes on, like the work of the ephod. It is the work of an artist and of 5 varieties of material. Okay, so let's see what the additional commentary has to say. Let's see, we got a lot of commentary related back to other sections of the Torah, so we won't spend too much time on that. Let's see. Should be right here somewhere. They make those numbers on here so small. Oh, there it is. Oh, the Old French. Here we go. Okay. To defend or prove a claim. The archaic English word derange is derived from this word and has the same meaning. Interesting. Goes on to say the additional commentary as it relates to, as it explains and substantiates its work. Maybe we'll get a little clearer idea of what it is here. Rashi to Isaiah 32:7 also gives 3 definitions for the word mishpat. Therefore, he uses the French word, and I'm not going to try it, derangement. Let's just go with that. And his explanation of the first sense of the word preceding a legal argument, which corresponds to a definition of a here. Thus, Rashi is saying here that the term Choshem Nishpat indicates that the Urim v'Tumim provide the truth of its works, just as one presenting his claims before the court tries to show the truth and justice of his argument. Okay, as it regards to, well, actually, that just actually refers back to Rashi's comment on Mishpat. So, we move on to verse 16. Square shot, yeah, as long as we got Rabbi Anshel here. I was actually quite stunned to find out that Rashi's commentary was actually written for children. It just absolutely surprised me that this kind of detail, the explanations and, why things are the way they are, to the detail that we're actually reading in here, was actually what he was teaching children back in his day.
One of the reasons is that what he said before that is that children can retain easier than an older person. And the more
I'd
you
have to agree with that.
I'm sorry?
So I'd have to agree with that.
So that's basically the main reason, because sometimes Rashi's language is easy to understand. He does not make it so complicated that even for a beginner to say, I don't understand what he means, because he goes into depth to explain what mishpat. Mishpat has 3 meanings. Yes, it's you go to court, you get a decision, and whatever the decision is, the dispensation of the decision, that's not hard to understand.
Yeah. So it just goes to my whole issue with Jewish education today. That we just it's a shanda the way we educate our children today. We don't give them accurate information. We mislead them. Because I taught in in Ivrea for a few years, and it was just astounding that we don't treat kids like they have any knowledge whatsoever. And
that's why a lot of times you will see that children, they grow up and they don't respect the parents. Sometimes they don't even speak to them.
Yeah.
Because children are not stupid. Children know and children feel, because if you ignore them, they will ignore you later on in life. Mm-hmm. That has been proven a million gazillion times. So yes, because all the rabbis say that the first 7 years of a child's life is the basis of his character. This is where he learns the basics of life. And where does he learn it from the first 7 years? It's from the parents.
Yeah. Yeah. So Okay, I've had my say, so let's move on to verse 16. Square shall it be, folded, as at its length and as at its width. Okay, so Rashi goes on to say here, as at its length and as at its width, after it's folded. And it is placed before him on his chest, opposite his heart. As it says, and they shall be upon Aharon's heart. The choshen hangs from the shoulder straps of the ephod, which comes up from behind him over his shoulders, and are bent over, and go down over his shoulders a bit in front of him. The choshen hangs from them by chains and rings, as explained in this passage. Now, I understood that the Nechoshen actually wasn't center on the Kohen Gadol. It was actually offset slightly to the left.
It was on the left side where his heart was.
Right.
It was longer in the back and shorter in the front because of the breastplate.
Right. Okay, so verse 17. Oh, wait a minute. Let's is there any additional commentary in here? Yeah, okay, so here we go. Here we go with the measurements again. Okay, so the further commentary on this one says, as regards to the length and the width, after it's folded, Azeret is equal to half an amah, and equivalent to 9 to 12 inches. Okay, so we've had this. An amah is what we also refer to as a cubit. Okay, we know a cubit is approximately somewhere between 18 and 20 inches.
Mm-hmm.
So 18, I think Marshall looked it up. It was like between 18 and 22 inches. So I have a zaret, of course, is going to be somewhere between 9 and 12 inches. Rashi teaches that the choshen was woven 1 amah by a half amah. Then it was folded over into a half amah square. Okay. Let's see. As it refers to placed on him opposite his heart, and again, and they shall be upon Aharon's heart. Further commentary says below verse 30, they refers to the Turim vetumim, which was in the fold of the choshen. The plural is used because the words Turim and Tumim are plural words, even though Urim vetumim are only one item. Okay. Verse 17. You shall fill it with stone filling, 4 rows of stone, a row of Odim, Pitah, and Bereket. In one row, the second row, Nofek, Saphir, and Yohalam. The third row, Leshem, Shavo, and Aklama. And the fourth row, Tarshish, Shoham, and Yashfet. Okay, so I kind of skipped ahead here. I went past 17, but there was a reason for that. Okay, so last night we were having our discussion in the class, and we got kind of off on the subject of stones. I was making a comment to Rabbi Anshel about stones and his knowledge on that, and just so happens we happen to be talking about stones here, and I thought we give Richard and Simcha have joined us. Give Rabbi Anshel the opportunity to explain these stones to us.
Okay, the first row was the Odem, the Pida, and the Bareket. The actual language is not Hebrew, it's actually Aramaic. So Odem was ruby, the Pita was an emerald, the Baraket was the brown topaz, and the Bareket was the red topaz. And the Odem was the ruby, the Pita was an emerald, the Baraket was the brown topaz. The Baraket was the brown topaz. The Pita was an emerald, the Baraket was the red topaz. The Nofesh was a malachite. Sapphire, we know is sapphire. And the Yamakom was diamond. Leshem is zircon. The Shebu was agate. Rishlama is amethyst. The Tarshish is topaz, which is blue. The Soham is onyx. And the Yarashe is jasper.
No.
Now, each color has a meaning to it, but it would take a very, very long time to understand and to explain the reason why. But the most important thing about the 4 rows, or that actual tablet that the Kohen Aguda was wearing, that each stone represented one of the tribes of Israel. Since there were 12 stones, so there were the 12 tribes of Israel.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe that's something we can discuss on Tuesday night.
Okay.
I may not this Tuesday night because we were already talking about what we were going to talk about this Tuesday, but maybe next Tuesday or the Tuesday after we can go in and we can dedicate the Tuesday show.
We can dedicate one night on the reasoning for the colors.
Yeah.
Because they could have chosen anything else, but ruby was blood, so there's more meaning to the stones than just because it's a ruby and it's red.
Yeah. So we'll do that on a Tuesday night, and that's what we call a teaser. So that's how we suck you in to get you into some of the other classes, is by doing things like that. So just so you know. Okay, so Rashi.
But it's interesting.
Yeah, Rashi. Yeah, actually it is. Rashi goes on to say, "You shall fill it, because the stones fill the indentations of the settings which are fixed for them." The verse calls them by the term filling stones. Okay, so no further commentary on there. There wasn't any commentary on 18, which dealt with the second row of stones. The third row of stones, Rashi, actually there's no commentary on that either. So we'll pick up with Rashi on verse 20, which is actually talking about the last row of stones and the gold settings. Okay, so Rashi goes on to say that they shall be of gold settings. This means the rows with their fillings shall be surrounded by gold settings, having a depth of a measure, and that will be filled by the thickness of the stone. This means this is the meaning of with their fillings, of a size to be filled with the thickness of the stones, shall the depth of the setting be, no less and no more. Okay, so see further commentary on this. Let's say the subject shall be gold settings in the row, not of the stones of the fourth row, which are mentioned immediately preceding the term. In this verse, we can see by the use of the masculine forms you and boy, they write that's so small. Oh, wait a minute. I got my magnifying glass here. I don't know why I always forget to use it. Mishubatzim, which refer to the masculine word. Turim, and not the feminine word avanim, which would require the feminine form tihieva. Okay. Not sure I followed that right, but okay. Anyway. Okay, so we're on to verse 21 now. I jumped ahead on myself here. Okay, verse 21. The stone shall be according to the names of the sons of Israel, 12 according to their names, like the engraving of a signet ring. Each man by his name shall they be for the 12 tribes. Okay. Yeah, I would have thought Rashi would have more to say on this, but it's actually very, very short here. Rashi goes on to say, each man by his name. The order of the tribes' names on the stone was like the order in which they were born. Odom for Reuven, Bidah for Shimon, and so on for all of them. And that's about all he's got to say about that. Verse 22.
There was not much written on it.
Pardon?
There was not much written about it.
No, and we were actually talking before the show, or actually earlier today, and you were saying that the color of the stones actually had a significance to the tribe.
Yeah, there is a significant. Like I said, there are significance, and we're going to go into maybe 2 weeks from now in the Tuesday show. But there was not much written on it that says that the ruby, because it is blood, that is the meaning. If it's an emerald and if it's green, that is the meaning. But that's all they say about it. They don't go into any detail why, and I don't know why it's not been done.
Yeah. Guess we'll have to wait till Yahu Hanavi comes and tells us, huh?
Like last night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No,
well, you can ask him. You can ask him when you're asking him, who does this lost object belong to? You can ask him about the stones at that point.
I will get into it.
There you go. Okay. Verse 22: For the Choshen you shall make chains at the edge of cable work of pure gold. And again, very, very simple statement here, but Rashi actually has quite a bit to say about this. So Rashi says, for the Choshen, although this phrase usually means on the Choshen, here it is to be understood as for the Choshen. To set them into its rings, as explained below in the passage. Chains. The word is related to shoresh, the word used for the roots of the tree, which hold the tree. So it is to be held firm and fixed in the ground. These chains too hold the Choshen, for it was to be hung from the ephod by them. They are the two chains mentioned above in the section on the settings. The grammarian, oh boy, here we go. Rashi and his grammar. The grammarian, Menachem ben Saruk, Menachem ben Ibn. Ibn actually is an Arabic word that actually means son of. I don't know if anybody actually knows that or even cares, but okay, so Menachem ibn Saruk also interpreted the word shasharot is as related to the word for roots. And he said that the second resh of the word is superfluous and does not change the basic meaning of the word, like the mem of shalom and the mem of rekam. But I do not agree with his words. Rather, shesheret in the Hebrew language of the Torah is the equivalent of shalshalit in the language of the Mishnah. Well, I tell you, I wish I had the full version of this so I wouldn't have to squint so much. Okay. At the edge. This word is the same as the word migbalot, which was stated above in describing the chains. With the term, the verse says that you should stick the chains into rings so that they will be at the edge of the choshen. Any use of the word gevul means edge. In Old French, and again, I am not going to massacre Old French again. Cable work. This means a work of braiding. Okay, so this must, we were talking about this earlier too, about the weight of the that the Kohen Gadol had to actually wear. There's a lot of heavy stuff here. I mean, you'll have you have silver, you have gold, you have all these stones and everything like that, and the Kohen Gadol has them all on. I mean, that's. I wonder if anybody has actually tried to figure out what the weight of that is.
That's why they said that the Kohen Gadol always had a hernia.
I believe it. I mean, we actually, I sat down with a student one time, and we basically came up to with what the ark would weigh, and figuring out what the wood and the gold and all that other stuff, and approximately how thick the gold would be and stuff like that, and we came up that the ark weighed approximately the same as a Volkswagen. I mean, it was heavy.
6 or 8 people carried it, so yeah.
Yeah, so it was somewhere around 1,800 to 2,000 pounds. That was with the tablets inside. Okay, so further commentary on this one. Let's see. Okay, so I'm going to go back here to 21 again because I did miss one of the further commentaries on here, which was Odem for Reuben and Bidah for Simeon, and so too for all of them. The further commentary on that one actually said, Dan was the fifth born of the tribes. Rashi, to Judges 18:27, says, however, that the stone of Dan was Leshem, the seventh of the stones of the Hoshen.
That was Zircon.
Zircon, okay. The commentators explain this by the saying that the order of the names of the stones of the Hoshen was not the precise order in which the tribes were born. Rather, it was the order in which the wives of Yaakov gave birth. That is, Leah was the first to give birth, so the stones of all her 6 sons came first. Bilhah was the second to give birth, so Dan was her first son, had his name written on the 7th stone, followed by the stone with the name of Naphtali, her second son. Rashi explains that Toledotam, here in the same way, in somewhat different sense, in that, in verse 10 above, there, Mizrahi Sepseh HaChachamim said also Targum Yoshinam and Targum Yerushalayim in our verse. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay. Further commentary on verse 22, the Hoshen, related to, although the phrase usually means on the Hoshen, here it is to be understood as for the Hoshen. Further commentary says that the most common meaning of al is on. It cannot mean that in this verse, however, for to make the chains on the Hoshen would be to make them together with the Hoshen from the outset. This is clearly not the case. As verse 24 says, they should put the Hoshen after they have been fashioned. Therefore, Rashi interprets all as 4. Okay, then we have some references to other sections of the Torah. Then we have, the Hebrew language as it relates to Rashi's comment about the Torah is equivalent to the language, in the language of the Mishnah. For example, Kilim, the basic meaning of both words is chain, and the second resh is an essential component of the scriptural word, just as the second lamed is an essential component of the Mishnaic word. So there you go. Okay, so we're on to verse 23. For the Choshen you shall make 2 rings of gold, and you shall put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the Choshen. Rashi goes on to say, for the Choshen. Here too, this phrase means for the Choshen, in order to set them into it. It is not possible to say that from the outset the rings should be fashioned upon it. For if so, why is it that the verse repeats and says, and you shall put the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the Choshen? Are they not already put on it? And if they had been fashioned with a Choshen from the start, the Torah should have written at the beginning of the verse, and you shall make upon the ends of the Choshen 2 rings, and not, and you shall put. Makes perfect sense. Okay. Rashi goes on to say, you must interpret the word al similarly with regard to the chains, which we just talked about here. The 2 ends of the Choshen on the 2 corners opposite the neck, on the right side of the Choshen and on the left, which face the shoulder straps of the ephod. Okay, no real further commentary on that. So we'll go to verse 24. Verse 24, and you shall put the 2 golden cables on the 2 rings at the end of the Choshen. Rashi goes on to say here, you shall put the 2 golden cables. They are the chains at the edge which were written about above. But that verse did not clarify where they were to be affixed to the Choshen. Now the verse clarifies for you that he should insert them into the rings. You should know with certainty that they are the same chains as the ones mentioned earlier, because in Parshot Ele Pekudei, there where the Torah describes how the commands to fashion the priestly garments were carried out, they were not mentioned twice. Okay, so further commentary on that one, referring back to they were not mentioned twice. The Torah speaks of the chains here in 2 separate places, in our verse and in verse 14. There, only one passage deals with them. Chapter 39, verse 15 through 18. Okay, verse 25. And the 2 ends of the 2 cables you shall put on the 2 settings, and you shall put on the shoulder straps of the ephod toward its face. Rashi goes on to say, and again, Rashi has a lot to say about this very short verse here. Rashi goes on to say, and the 2 ends of the 2 cables, both ends of each one. You shall put on the 2 settings, and they are the same settings written above, between the passages of the Choshen and the passage of the ephod. But in the earlier verses, the Torah did not explain why they were needed nor their location. Now it explains that he should affix to them the ends of the cables which were inserted into the rings of the Choshen, to the right and to the left, next to the neck of the Kohen Gadol. He affixed the two ends of the right chain to the settings on the, he affixed the two ends of the right chain to the settings on the right, and similarly to the one on the left, the ends of the left chain. In other words, it didn't cross over on the back. Okay, you shall put the settings on the shoulder straps of the ephod. One setting, one on one shoulder strap, and the other on the other. Thus, the shoulder straps of the ephod hold up the Choshen so that it should not fall, and the Choshen is hung upon them. But despite the connection, the lower edge of the Choshen could still move back and forth and knock against the Kohen Gadol's stomach, and is not secured to him well. Therefore, the Choshen needed another two rings for its lower side, as the Torah goes on to explain. Towards its face, i.e., the face of the ephod. The verse is saying that he should not put the settings on the sides of the shoulder straps facing the meil, i.e., the underside of the shoulder straps, but rather on the upper side, which faces outward. This is called toward the face of the ephod. For the side that is not visible is not called face. Kind of makes sense. Okay. So, further commentary on this one says, and we're going to get into Onkelos now, and the two ends of the two cables, both ends of each one. Onkelos understands Ketzot as sides. The two cables as at the one side of the Choshen. Rashi explains that Ketzot here means ends and refers to the two ends of the cables. And that's from Nefesh Hager. Furthermore, the two ends of the two cables could have been understood to mean one end of each of the two cables, a total of two ends. Rashi explains that the verse is saying both ends of each cable, a total of four ends. So there you go. Any comment? Okay, we'll go on. Oh, did you have something?
No.
Okay.
Go on.
Oh, Donald says, good. I'm interested in the significance of the colors. Good. So in a couple of weeks, you'll get your answer. That's what we call a cliffhanger, as Donald knows well from watching Zeta's Story Corner. We always we try and end on a cliffhanger.
It's okay. He's going to email me tomorrow, so I want to know.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on to verse 26. You shall make 2 gold rings and place them on the two ends of the Choshen on its edge that faces the ephod inward. Rashi goes on to say, on the two ends of the Choshen. These are the two lower corners, to the right and to the left, on its edge that faces the ephod inward. Here in this verse, you have two indications of the location of these rings. One is that he should put them on the two ends of the Choshen's lower edge, which is opposite the apron-like part of the ephod, for its upper edge is not opposite the apron-like part of the ephod, as it is near the neck of the Kohen Gadol, while the apron-like part of the ephod is put on his hips. The verse gives another indication of the location of the lower rings of the Choshen, that he should not set them on the surface of the Choshen that faces outward, but rather on the surface that faces inward, as it says, inward. And the surface referred to as inward faces the ephod. For the Kohen ties the cheshev of the ephod, and the apron of the ephod is folded in front of the Kohen over his hips and over a small part of his stomach on both sides, until the points of the ends of the Choshen and the Choshen ends rest upon it. Well, that's a lot. Okay, so further commentary on this one. Let's see. Where would that be? Let's see. Looking. Nope. That goes to the next verse, which is 27. You shall make 2 golden rings and put them on the 2 shoulder straps of the ephod at the bottom toward its face, opposite its seam, above the cheshev of the ephod. Rashi goes on to here to say, on the 2 shoulder straps of the ephod at the bottom. For the 2 settings are put on the 2 upper ends of the shoulder straps of the ephod, which come over the Kohen Gadol's shoulders, opposite his throat. And they bend forward and go down in front of him. And he commanded to put the rings at their other end, which is attached to the ephod. This is what is meant by what the verse says, opposite where it is attached. That is, near the place of the shoulder straps attached to the ephod, a bit above the cheshev belt. For the point of attachment for the shoulder strap to the ephod was at the lower level of the belt of the ephod, and these rings were put a bit along. Yeah, that's what it says. And these rings were put a bit along the height of the shoulder straps as they stood upright. This is what is meant by what the verse says, above the cheshev of the ephod. They are level with the lower edge of the Choshen. He put a string of turquoise wool through those rings, and through the ring of the Choshen, and fastened them with that string at the right and the left, so that the lower edge of the Choshen should not move back and forth and knock against the Kohen Gadol's stomach. Thus it is set firmly against the me'il toward, and he goes on, towards his face on the other side of the ephod. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, really, no additional commentary on that one either, strangely enough. Okay, we are at our halfway point. Rabbi Anshel, I'm going to turn your volume down here. Okay, and we are going to take our break now, 6 minutes, and then when we return, we will pick up with verse 28. So, everybody, we'll go ahead and take that down, and we will be back in 6. Stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy, the chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Thank everyone for sticking around. Okay, so this is where we left off. We're on chapter 28, and we're at verse 28. So let me bring Rabbi Anshel back on and get his picture up there first, and then we'll give his picture some voice here. So we are back now.
Okay.
Okay, so now you made an interesting point during the break about the Hoshen and its purpose.
Really is not a religious piece. It's made out of chains and rings, and actually double rings. And the bottom rings are tied together with a blue ribbon. It is basically a collar that goes around the Kohen HaGadol. It is to beautify his looks when he goes into the temple, whether it's for just to pray or whatever he has to do. It is not a religious piece. It's just to beautify his looks. I'm going to try, or probably Ariel can get you a schematic of what it is. But the importance of it is just beautification. That's all it is.
Yeah. It's kind of like the Torah on our talit.
Yep.
When we put a fancy one, and if you look at the picture of Rabbi Anshel up here in the corner, you'll see that the Torah is it's wide and it's very kind of decorative and stuff. And the whole purpose of that is simply to beautify the mitzvah.
It's to beautify the talit, not me.
Yeah. Or to beautify the mitzvah of wearing the talit.
Of wearing it, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on verse 28. And the Torah says, and they shall bind the Hoshen from its rings to the rings of the ephod with a turquoise woolen string to be on the chesed of the ephod, and the Hoshen shall not be detached from upon the ephod. Rashi goes on to say here, and they shall bind. The word is an expression of fastening. Who would have guessed? So too, the word ruchse.
Yep.
In the phrase from gangs of men, which means packs of evil men bound together. So too, the word v'harchasim. I don't know if I got the accent in the right place or not.
Yep.
Chasim, in the phrase, and the mountain ranges shall become a valley, is an expression of fastening or joining. That verse states mountains that are so close to each other that it's impossible to descend to a canyon between them without great difficulty. Kind of like the Carpathian Mountains, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which you would know all about.
Born there.
Yeah. As for a result of their closeness, and the canyon is steep and deep, will be flattened into a valley of a plain, and it will be easy to traverse. Rashi goes on to say that to be on the chesed of the ephod, for the Hoshen to be attached to the chesed of the ephod, and the Hoshen shall not be detached. The word Yizach has the sense of severance, and it is in the Arabic language, according to what Doshan ben Labrat says. Interesting. Okay, so Doshan ben Labrat was a 10th century grammarian let's see, 10th century. That would have been, yeah, that would have been, he would have been a contemporary of Rashi, wouldn't he? Because Rashi, Rashi was born about 1010, wasn't he?
Correct.
I'm thinking, okay, so they would have been right about the same time. So and hey, guess what? He's a grammarian. You know, how much grammar do we have to go through with Rashi here? Okay, so, and again, when you start thinking about all the things that he talks about grammar and sentence structure and stuff like that, and then you get the idea, yeah, okay, I understand. He's actually teaching children. This makes sense now. Okay, so anyway, let's get back to Donash ben Labrat was a 10th century grammarian and composer of many piyutim, the best known of which is the Ror Yikra. Rashi frequently quotes Donash in deciphering a difficult word or passage. Donash wrote a treatise on which listed 200 instances in which his understanding of word roots and definitions disagrees with those given in the Makbaret of his colleagues. Menachem ben, well, they say Ben here, but before we called him Ibn, Menachem ibn Saruk, which set the stage for the debate that continues through the centuries. Imagine that. Jews continuing to debate something for centuries. Who would have thought? The main difference between the two grammarians were in deriving the roots of various words, thus altering their meanings. They did not differ, however, on the accepted grammatical rules of their day. And that is so good to know.
That is a problem when Philo tried to translate the Torah into Greek, because because there's so many differences. Because in Hebrew there is no word for a virgin. The Hebrew word is betula. It's a young lady, but the young lady can be and cannot be.
Right.
So by translating from one language to another language, the meaning can be lost.
Well, that's true, because you have, it's like playing telephone. You have the translation. You try to translate from Hebrew to, well, let's say Hebrew to Aramaic, Aramaic to Greek, Greek to Latin, Latin to English. You're going to lose something.
You're going to lose a lot.
Yeah, you're going to lose a lot, because there are just words. Each language has unique words that are they're only part of that language. So you have to find something that may be similar. So you lose meaning as you go along. So, okay, so no commentary on 29. So we'll go from 29 to 30. 29, Aharon shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on the Hoshen of judgment on his heart when he enters the sanctuary as a constant remembrance before Hashem. 30, into the Hoshen of judgment you shall place the Urim and the Tumim, and they shall be on Aharon's heart when he comes before Hashem, and Aharon shall bear the judgment of the children of Israel on his heart before Hashem constantly. Rashi goes on to say the Urim and the Tumim, it is a writing of the explicit name, the tetragrammaton of Hashem, which he would put inside the folds of the Hoshen. For by means of the Urim and the Tumim, the Hoshen would illuminate its words and bring perfection to its words. In the second Beit HaMikdash, the Hoshen was present, for it is impossible for the Kohen Gadol to be lacking any of his 8 garments when he performs the temple service. But that divine name of the Urim v'Tumim was not inside it. It is because of that writing, the Urim v'Tumim, that the Choshen is called judgment. As it says, and he will consult the judgment of the Urim, the judgment of the children of Israel. The Choshen is a thing through which they are judged and arrive at a conclusion regarding whether to do a thing or not to do a thing. According to the Agadic Midrash, which says that the Choshen atones for those who pervert justice. The Choshen is called judgment because of forgiveness of the sin involving judgment. Okay, let's see. With regards to the Tetragrammaton of Hashem, further commentary says this is the divine name which is generally forbidden to be uttered. Some maintain that it was not the Tetragrammaton, but the 42-letter name. According to others, it was the 72-letter name. I happen to believe it's the 42-letter name, and those of you who know me probably know why. I'm a big fan of the movie Pi, which talks a lot about the 42-letter name of God. So anyway.
But there's some names, so do I, but there's some names that you shouldn't utter. It's as simple as that.
Well, yeah. And that brings up an interesting point. Now, we've all seen the Messianics, the Jehovah's Witnesses, or whatever you want to call them, where they write out the name. And they write it out based on the Hebrew, whenever you see vowels on Hashem's name in Hebrew, it's actually vowelized incorrectly. Intentionally incorrectly. Because it's actually vowelized with the vowels of Adonai. That was intentionally done so that you wouldn't mistakenly, if you were reading along in your Siddur, you wouldn't accidentally pronounce the name. So, to make sure they either don't put the vowels or the vowels are not the ones that actually belong there. So,
well, they do, but who cares? As long as we don't do it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They don't understand that they believe that they can name all the names of God, which is wrong. I mean, there's no human being alive who's worthy enough to call all the names of God.
Right, yeah. Okay, so with regard, the additional commentary again, with regard to, for my means, the Urim v'Tumim, the Choshen would illuminate its words and bring perfection to its words. Targum Yonasan Yoma Folio 73b. Urim literally means lights, and Tumim means perfection. The Urim v'Tumim is called by the name because it would illuminate issues brought to it for consultation, and its predictions would always come perfectly true.
That's why it's called the light of perfection.
Yes, exactly. Okay, with regard to the Choshen atones for those who pervert justice, the additional commentary says, Rashi's two explanations of the word mishpat, judgment, here correspond to the two explanations he gave in the in the comments to verse 15, which is where we started this evening, through what they appear here in reverse order. Okay, remember I talked about the three that I'm going to have to slip back because I don't remember. Here we go. Okay. Yep.
It's like, and the easiest way to say it's the trial, it's the verdict, and the
Thank
punishment.
you. Yeah, that's all I was trying. That's all I was trying. The claims of the litigant, the verdict, and the execution of the judgment. Okay.
Correct.
So. Okay. Verse 31. You shall make the meal of the ephod entirely of turquoise wool. And that's all it has to say in the verse. Rashi, however, goes on to say, the meal of the ephod, it is of the ephod in the sense that the ephod is placed upon it as a belt. Okay. The opening of the head shall be folded over within it. Its opening shall have a border all around the work of a weaver. It shall be like the opening of a suit of armor. It may not be torn. Okay. So Rashi goes on to say here, and the opening of its head shall be, this refers to the opening of the melee at its top. This is the opening of the collar. There's actually a picture in here, so I'm going to put that up so you can see. This is the meal. I've been saying melee. It's meal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Within it. This is to be understood as is rendered by Targum Onkelos. It means folded to its inside, so its fold should not be a hem for it. It was the work of a weaver, no needlework. Like the opening of a suit of armor, we learn from here that their armor had their neck openings folded to the inside. Why that's significant, I don't know, but we'll take it as it is. It may not be torn, so that it will not be torn, and one who wears it transgresses the negative commandment. For this is one of the negative commandments of the Torah. So too the verse, and the quotient shall not be detached, and so too the verse, they shall not remove from it, which it was said with regard to the poles of the ark. Both are reckoned among the negative commandments. Okay, let's see where we're at. Okay, we got plenty of time. Plenty of time. We're on to verse 33. You shall make on its hem pomegranates of turquoise wool and purple wool and scarlet wool on its hem all around, and golden bells among them all around. Rashi says pomegranates. They were round and hollow, in the shape of pomegranates, which are made like a hen's egg. Now that's interesting. I didn't realize they were actually hollow. I would have thought that the pomegranates would have been made in such a way that they were actually more solid.
Yeah, but he won't be able to move, guaranteed.
Well, yeah.
And
He's got enough weight going on him already. We don't need to add more weight.
And the reason for the pomegranates is because Israel is the region is famous for pomegranates. That's where they come from.
Yeah, that's true. And it's interesting if you look at the bottom of a pomegranate, it looks like the Magen David.
Correct.
Now, there's something interesting about pomegranates. I think I've talked about this before. I don't think I've actually talked to you about it before, but pomegranates, you say the reason of the pomegranates is because pomegranates has 613 seeds in it. Okay.
Correct.
So, I wanted to find out about this. So, being a math geek as I am, and this was back when I was teaching statistics, I went through and I looked at pomegranates, because I said not all pomegranates can have 613. There's got to be some variation, stuff like that. So I looked around the world at different places where pomegranates grow, and what the average number of seeds were in the pomegranate. And it does vary. It varies by region, it varies by country, and so on and so forth. So, statistically, I took the average, and I came up with a grand average. And you know what the grand average was? 613. No 613 point anything. It came out to a solid 613 when you took you took the average of the averages of all the pomegranates around the world. It came out to 613. I thought that was pretty impressive.
That's why I said correct.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on to verse 34. A golden bell and a pomegranate on the hem of the robe all around. Rashi goes on to say, a golden bell and a pomegranate next to it. A golden bell and a pomegranate next to it. Okay, Rashi, or the further commentary on that one goes on to say that the bells were next to the pomegranate, not inside them. Okay. Verse 35. It shall be on Aharon in order to minister. And let me just back up here for a second before we go on here. We're looking at all these things and we're talking about them, and there's a lot of detail in here and stuff like that, and it's very hard to kind of picture it. Now, as those of you who are with us, and that's basically everybody who's in the room here tonight, knows that at the end of the parsha, we always go to the little midrash says, and the little midrash has really nice diagrams of all these things. So when we get to the end of the parsha and we go into the little midrash says, we'll actually go through again all the accoutrements of the Kohen Gadol and what they would actually look like. And you'll be able to see it and get a much better idea of what it was that we were talking about. Okay, verse 35, Rashi says, no, we're going to read it first. That's what we're going to do. We're going to read it first. Okay, verse 35, it shall be on Aharon in order to minister. Its sound shall be heard when he enters the sanctuary before Hashem, and when he leaves, and he will not die. Rashi goes on to say, now I would think Rashi would have more to say on this one, but he's basically going to comment on the very last thing on here, and he will not die. From the implications of the negative, you infer the positive. If he will have them, the priestly garments, he will not be subject to the death penalty. But if he will enter the Mishkan or the Beit HaMikdash to perform the service lacking one of these garments, he will be subject to death at the hands of heaven. And or actually, even the court, because we've read that before, that a murderer, it says, will be taken off of the altar.
So when he walks in, those pomegranates being empty will make noise to announce to Hashem that he's entering, so he will not be punished. And if you notice in Christianity, especially in Catholicism, when the priest wants to start Mass, what happens? Because I do comparison a lot, because they've copied us so much that it's ridiculous. You hear bells; they will ring bells that it's announcing that that priest is starting Mass, and everybody should be attentive. But they ring bells, just as the Kohen, when he walked. Well, he didn't ring the bells. The bells rang themselves, because when he moved, they rang. They made noise.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I want to make sure we didn't. Okay, so
36.
The further commentary, he will not be subject to death he will be subject to death
Yeah.
by the hands of Hashem, or by the hands of heaven. Further commentary says from the Tractate Sanhedrin, folio 38a and b, it is a transgression that does not fall under the jurisdiction of a human court. It is one for which the heavenly tribunal exacts punishment. Okay.
Sanhedrin cannot do anything about that.
No. I mean, I would say in most cases they probably wouldn't know. Only the Kohanim would actually know.
Correct.
Yeah. So, 36, you shall make a tzitzit of pure gold, and you shall engrave upon it, like the engraving of a signet, holy to Hashem. Yeah, that's all it says. Okay, Rashi goes on to say a tzitzit. It was like a golden plate, 2 finger breadths wide, which extended around the forehead from ear to ear. Okay, and there's actually a picture here of it. Would be that right there. Sorry you can't see this, Anshel.
That's okay. I know what it is.
Yeah. Okay, so, yeah. Okay, so we're on to verse 37. You shall place it on you shall place it on a turquoise woolen string, and it shall be on the mitznefet, opposite the face of the mitzvahfet, shall it be. Rashi goes on to say here, on a string of turquoise wool. But elsewhere it says, and they put upon it a string of turquoise wool. And furthermore, here it is written, and it shall be on the mitznefet, while below in the next verse it says, and it shall be on Aaron's forehead. Furthermore, in Shechitat Kodashim, we learn the Kohen Gadol's hair was visible between the tzitzit and the mitznefet. For there, in the space between the tzitzit and mitznefet, he would place a tefillin, as if he didn't have enough to wear already, right?
The mitznefet was actually almost like a yarmulke, which covered the back of his head up to his forehead, because on the forehead he wore the tefillin and also the gold forehead plate.
Okay, so we learn from this Talmudic passage that the mitznefet is situated above, at the top of the head, and that it is not deep enough to have the entire head up to the forehead go into it, and that the tzitzit is below, but not the mitznefet. These apparently contradictory verses can be resolved as follows. Thank goodness. The strings were inserted in holes in the tzitzit and hung from it at the 2 ends of its center. There were 6 strings at these 3 places. On each of these 3 places, there was 1 string above the tzitzit and the outer surface, and 1 on the underside opposite it. He would tie the ends of the strings at the back of the neck, all 3 of the pairs of ends. Thus, the length of the plate and the strings at the ends encompass the entire skull between them. The middle string at its upper edge is tied with the ends of the other two side strings and goes across the width of the head over the top. Thus, the tzitzit with its strings is made like a kind of hat. It is With regard to the middle string, that it says, and it shall be on the mitznafet. He would put the zitzit on his head like a kind of hat over the mitznafet. And the middle string would hold it so that it would not fall. And the plate hung opposite his forehead. Now, all of the verses have been upheld. The outer part of the string is on the zitzit, and on the zitzit is also on the inner part of the string. And the middle string on the zitzit is on top the mitznafet. And if we didn't have this, we wouldn't have any idea what was going on.
Okay, so to make it easy, at each end of the mitznafet, there were 2 strings. So that means there were 4. So the 4 strings were tied together with the 5th string, which made sure that the mitznafet would not be able to move or to fall. And when they were tied together, it looked like a head. We'll get into one day. We'll get into the shroud, and the shroud has a mitznafet, which is a hat that you put on the deceased, so you don't see his face. You cover his face with that. But that mitznafet is used differently than what the Kohen HaGadol wore. You could see his face.
Right.
With a deceased, you cannot. So, but it's still called mitznafet.
Well, did you want to go into that a little further? I mean, we're coming to the end of the session, so we can stop here.
Well, unless you want to go into what he was wearing, and the tunic, the pants, the turban, the sash. That could be another lesson, because each one of them, there's a reason why the shroud is almost the same. It is the same what the Kohen HaGadol wore, except for that he didn't for the tahara, for the deceased, you don't put on a gold plate on his head. But the rest of it is the same, exactly what the Kohen HaGadol, except that couple of them have a different name, but they were the same use. Like the tunic was the shirt that he wore, and each one there was a reason why. Like the tunic was, when he went in to pray to God, the tunic means that he was asking God atonement for all murders. Any Jew that committed a murder, that God should forgive him. The linen pants was God to atone for any person who committed sexual immorality. So I mean, we can go. I mean, this we can go on on a Tuesday and explain these in more detail, because they have a lot of meaning to it. It's just not as easily explained in the Parsha as I would explain it. The reason easier when you do Tahara.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that when the Met is dressed, it's dressed the same way as the Kohen Gadol was dressed.
And this whole thing, the discussion you discussed about, the piece that is all chains and rings and that. When you do the tahara, when you dress the deceased, it's called a sash, and the sash is asking God atonement for immoral thoughts, and that's basically what we were talking tonight about, the piece that's the meaning of that. So they're interrelated, just a different name. One was wearing it on his neck. The deceased wears it on his around his belly. It's like a belt.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking
Like
they were
a
talking
like a
about the
gartel.
golden belt. So I'll let you continue, unless we're finished.
Yeah, we're about out of time, so we're going to
Okay.
stop there at verse 38. So let me turn your volume down here, and then I'll be back with you as soon as we're out. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. Don't forget that Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern is Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service, and then at 10 a.m. Eastern on Shabbat morning is Shachrit and Musaf, and then back again Monday for Zeta's Story Corner at 8 p.m. Eastern. Pretty much are all 8 p.m. Eastern except for Shachrit and Musaf. And then again Tuesday night for the Rabbis Discuss. At, again, 8 p.m. Eastern, and then right back here again next Wednesday for the Torah Study in Depth with Rabbi A and Rabbi A. So, okay, so let me go ahead and take that down because I can't sign out with that out. Okay, so thank you for being here, and hope to see you again. Tell your friends, click the like button. Click the notification button so that you know when we're on and all that good stuff. And we will simply say, Laila Tov.